There is a moment when people stop listening to you, but nothing obvious changes. They still smile. They still reply. They still say your name. Yet something has quietly shifted. The weight behind your words is gone. You feel it later, not immediately. In small dismissals, in decisions made without you, in the way your presence no longer alters the room. Most people never notice when this happens. They assume respect is lost through big mistakes, public failures, or visible weakness. But that's rarely how it works. Respect is usually lost silently, through patterns you repeat without awareness, while believing you are doing the right thing. Welcome to Mind Echoes. We upload thoughtful videos every day. If you find this interesting, subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Now, let's return to the topic. The problem is not that people suddenly decide they don't respect you. That idea comforts the ego because it suggests an external betrayal. The real problem is that respect erodes slowly, while you remain convinced nothing is wrong. You keep behaving the same way, using the same tone, the same explanations, the same emotional strategies, unaware that the social meaning of your behavior has changed. Most people misunderstand respect as something tied to morality, kindness, or intention. They think if they are fair, helpful, patient, or selfless, respect should naturally follow. When it doesn't, they feel confused or resentful. But respect is not a reward for good behavior. It is a response to how you manage power, boundaries, and self-definition. Another misunderstanding is the belief that respect is loud when it disappears. People expect confrontation, criticism, or rejection. In reality, loss of respect is quiet. It shows up as reduced attention, subtle condescension, or decisions made without consulting you. People stop challenging you, not because they agree, but because your opinion no longer matters enough to engage with. What makes this especially dangerous is that the behaviors that cause this loss often feel virtuous. Over-explaining feels like clarity. Excessive availability feels like loyalty. Emotional transparency feels like honesty. Avoiding conflict feels like maturity. Each of these can be healthy in the right context. But when they become unconscious patterns, they signal something else entirely. The viewer often senses something is off, but can't name it. They feel less influential at work, less desired in relationships, less taken seriously by friends or family. They try harder, communicate more, give more, and become more accommodating. And with each attempt, respect drains further. This creates a loop. The less respect you receive, the more you seek validation. The more validation you seek, the less respect you inspire. And because this happens beneath conscious awareness, most people never realize they are participating in their own social erasure. From a psychological perspective, respect is not about likability. It is about perceived solidity of identity. Jung understood this as the strength of the ego in relation to the unconscious. When your ego is porous, undefined, or dependent on external approval, others sense it immediately, even if they can't articulate why. One of the fastest ways respect erodes is through unconscious submission. This does not mean obedience. It means signaling, subtly and repeatedly, that you need others to be comfortable with you in order for you to be okay. This shows up as constant justification of your choices, apologizing when no apology is required, or preemptively explaining yourself to avoid misunderstanding. Each explanation communicates uncertainty, not about the facts, but about yourself. Nietzsche spoke about this in terms of power, not as domination, but as self-possession. When a person is not in possession of themselves, they attempt to borrow stability from others. They seek reassurance, agreement, or emotional permission. The listener feels this demand, even unconsciously. And no one respects what feels needy, regardless of how polite or intelligent it sounds. Another pattern is overexposure of the inner world. Modern culture confuses vulnerability with authenticity. But psychological reality is more precise. Vulnerability without containment signals lack of internal structure. When you share every doubt, fear, or emotional fluctuation, you remove the sense that you can hold yourself together under pressure. Respect does not require emotional coldness. It requires emotional regulation. Jung would describe this as being overtaken by the shadow without integration. The shadow is not weakness itself, but the unexamined compulsion to reveal, confess, or collapse in front of others as a way to feel seen. When shadow material leaks out indiscriminately, it places others in a position of emotional superiority. They become the witness, the stabilizer, the one who holds ground while you drift. Another critical factor is inconsistency. When your values, boundaries, or reactions shift depending on who you are with, people cannot locate you psychologically. One day you are firm. The next day you accommodate. One moment you assert yourself. The next you retreat to keep peace. This does not read as flexibility. It reads as negotiability. And negotiable people are managed, not respected. Power dynamics operate beneath conscious thought. People constantly assess who sets the emotional tone, who tolerates discomfort, and who adjusts themselves to avoid loss. The one who tolerates discomfort without collapsing is perceived as higher status. Regardless of kindness or competence, there is also the issue of invisible contracts. Many people behave generously while unconsciously expecting appreciation, loyalty, or special treatment in return. When that return does not come, resentment leaks out through tone, silence, or passive aggression. Others sense this emotional debt, and once generosity feels transactional, respect disappears at the deepest level. Respect erodes when you abandon self-definition. When your identity becomes reactive, shaped by others' moods, expectations, or approval, you no longer feel like a center. You feel like an accessory. People do not orient themselves around accessories. They orient around centers. This is not cruelty. It is perception. Human beings are drawn to what feels grounded, coherent, and internally anchored. When that anchor weakens, attention follows. The uncomfortable truth is this: people do not lose respect for you because you are too kind, too honest, or too patient. They lose respect because you show them repeatedly that you will abandon yourself to maintain connection. This is not a moral failure. It is a survival strategy learned earlier in life. At some point, you discovered that adapting, pleasing, explaining, or shrinking kept you safe. That strategy may have worked when you had little power, but when carried into adult relationships, it communicates something else entirely. Respect requires friction. Not conflict, but resistance. The capacity to remain intact when others are uncomfortable. When you remove all friction from your interactions, you remove the sense that you exist as a separate force. Another truth is that people are not consciously deciding to devalue you. They are responding to cues, tone, timing, silence, energy. These cues operate faster than thought. By the time disrespect becomes visible, the judgment has already been made at a non-verbal level. It is also true that trying to demand respect never works. The moment you ask for it, explain why you deserve it, or complain about not receiving it, you confirm its absence. Respect cannot be negotiated. It emerges when your behavior no longer asks for permission to exist. Finally, there is this: some relationships only function when you are slightly diminished. The moment you become more defined, more boundaried, or less accommodating, those relationships destabilize. This does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means the previous balance depended on your self-erasure. This is difficult to accept because it reframes the problem. The loss of respect is not something done to you. It is something revealed when you stop performing a role that made others comfortable. The first shift is to reduce unnecessary explanation. Speak, then stop. Let silence do its work. Explanation should serve clarity, not anxiety. When you notice the urge to justify yourself, pause and ask whether the explanation is needed or whether it is an attempt to manage how you are perceived. The second shift is emotional containment. This does not mean suppression. It means choosing when and with whom you reveal uncertainty. Not every doubt needs an audience. Develop the ability to process emotion privately before sharing it selectively. This builds internal authority. The third shift is boundary consistency. Decide quietly what you tolerate and what you do not. Then enforce it without drama. No speeches. No threats. Just action. Consistency teaches others how to orient themselves around you. The fourth shift is tolerating misunderstanding. Some people will misinterpret you when you stop over-accommodating. Let them. Clarifying everything is a form of control disguised as kindness. Respect grows when you allow others to sit with their interpretations without rushing to correct them. The fifth shift is reclaiming self-definition. Act from what you value, not from how you wish to be seen. This may temporarily reduce approval, but it increases coherence. And coherence is what others respond to at a deep level. These are not techniques to manipulate others. They are corrections that restore balance. The moment your behavior no longer leaks need, the social field reorganizes itself naturally. Respect does not return with an announcement. It returns subtly, in pauses, in attention. In the way, people wait for you to finish speaking. You may not even notice it at first. And that is the point. There is no guarantee that everyone will respond to the shift. Some will drift away. Some will resist. A few may attempt to pull you back into old patterns. None of this requires reaction. Stability does not argue for itself. The deeper outcome is not external. It is internal. You begin to feel heavier, more grounded, less reactive. You stop monitoring rooms for approval. You stop adjusting your shape to fit expectations. When that happens, respect becomes a side effect, not a pursuit. And if it does not come from certain people, you will notice something else instead. You no longer need it from them. And that silence, more than anything, changes how the world responds to you.